I'm Jordan.
And I'm Rosanna.
And on this podcast, we explore how to take life off autopilot
and relentlessly pursue a life worth living together. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 8 of the Relentless Pursuit podcast, Adjusting Your Margins. So that might sound like a funny title, but
it's like on a page when you used to have to make like a one inch margin. Although if you're a college student and you have to reach a page limit, then you would do like 1.25.
Yeah,
you
and then
a little bit.
13.5 inch font. So it's kind of like that a little bit. We usually see the term margins usually in the context of like an English class, which is perfect for one former high school teacher and a current high school English teacher that, we're talking about, adjusting your margins accordingly. And I was thinking about this over the course of the last month or so. And when I pitched it to you, I think you were a little confused. But the last 2 weekends I haven't been working, and we've actually just had some space. We're like in between sports seasons for our kids. And it was like that little bit of the calm before the holidays. And I found myself with just some like downtime. And I don't know if you noticed this, but I felt oddly out of place. Because for the most part, we kind of like, not because we mean to, but like overschedule ourselves, that we've always got something going. And if it's not something that we have going, it's like something that's layered in with the kids, whether it's, piano lessons or sports or birthday parties or whatever it might be. And I found myself just like oddly walking around the house, almost lost. Like I didn't know what to do at that space or time because I'm not used to like scheduling in time where there's nothing going on. And I should have just like sat and grabbed a book and relaxed and relished in it. And I didn't because I felt uncomfortable like having that space. Have you ever felt like that?
Well, I don't know. What's uncomfortable about it? Like we've talked about like the virtues of scheduling things and staying productive, even if it's not productive, of kind of like building in like purposeful activities. So I don't know, like.
Right. But like, do we schedule in enough time off? Do we schedule in enough rest? Do we schedule some time just to like read a book on a Saturday for a couple hours, like guilt free?
Right, so go back to the title, like you're talking about margins. So what do you mean by that?
So when I think about adjusting your margins, I think about myself, like even in high school and in college and writing a paper. And I think this speaks to like my temperament and just like the way that I am. I'm like a go, go, go. Like my use of margins in school, like where people would increase their margins so they could write less and have more space, I was the opposite. I would set my margins at like 0.5 so that there was less white space on the outside of the paper. What was it? Double spacing, so that there's more space between the lines. Like I would shrink that. I would cheat it so that I could fill my paper with more information and more research and more of my own thoughts because that's how I roll.
Yeah. You're honestly the first person that I've heard say that.
Oh, come on.
But everyone else would expand the margin a little bit.
I would shrink the margins and I would shrink the spacing, all to like put more time and effort and energy into like what I was writing to get more on the paper because I thought that more was better. And so now I'm kind of seeing that like trickle down. Like I think that was like the foreshadowing of just kind of who I am. But when we think of even just a book, if you read books, even though the words on the book make up the meat of the story without like the white borders around those words would be difficult to read. And so if we think about our lives as like the words in the text, we need that boring white space around our lives to help keep us sane and focused. And I think that is something that we should all kind of look at as we move into the hustle and bustle of the holidays ahead is, do we have enough margin? Do we have enough spacing? Do we have enough time and rest in between what's going on to be the best that we can be?
All right. So just so I understand you, would you say that what you mean by margin is what we might call like some R&R or downtime or breathing room or space? Like, are those other terms that we use to describe what you're talking about?
Yes. Would you like the definition of margin?
Sure.
All right. So definition of margin. Margin is the
known this was coming.
Unscheduled time that you can use in whatever way refreshes you or helps you get back on track with life. Margin is your breathing room. It's like kind of like the emergency fund in your schedule for when you're running late or somebody throws up or you just need to put your feet up for a minute. Margin is the place where you can reflect on the text of your life. like on what's going on. Everyone needs that, a space to pencil in your thoughts, to ponder the words before turning to the next page. In the margin of the book is where you have space to write your notes and ask yourself questions. So again, like, being a teacher, when we teach kids like how to be good readers and how to ask questions and how to think and ponder, it's like there's space on the outside of the text to like write your questions or a thought or like an aha moment. But if we're operating without margin, areas of rest, breathing room, relaxation in our life, do we have the time to kind of process what's happening and act in the best way for ourselves, for our families, for our careers, in all aspects of our lives?
All right. So if we're writing a new chapter of our life in a sense, and as we do that, that's like the words on the page. So what's the content of the words? Are you saying like your career and your just general, anything that makes you busy, like your busy family life, your relationships, anything that takes work and effort to maintain?
Right. Just everything that's going on, family, friendships, career, hobbies, interests, all of that. Like that's all, the words on the page. But even though, your hobbies can refresh you, or even if you love your job or your career, do you have time built in your schedule, in your life to relax? Do you have a day here or there that you schedule to like catch up on things, like in a calm fashion? Or to spend with people, like, right? Like we can go from one thing to the next, and maybe what we're experiencing isn't quality, it's quantity. And so how do you take your foot off the gas? How do you create some space in your own schedule to make sure that you're leading a happy and healthy life, not just a full life that's depleting you, but that you're constantly like renewing and refreshing yourself?
It makes me think of and this may be over generalizing, but like a European pace, like where you can have a meal for like 2 or 3 hours and you just kind of loiter in the presence of others without feeling like there's something that you need to get to.
Yeah, just like relishing in the moment. I thought about that. I was spending some time with the kids this morning, and I was like, we don't need to rush to anything. We don't need to go anywhere. So like, how do you just, right? Like, how do you even just operate in those moments? Like, are you just like taking the time to enjoy it? Like for me, like I often feel like there's a clock ticking, there's a lot to get done, there's a checklist to handle, but it's like, can you just be somewhere, wherever that may be, in a more kind of like relaxed and like in tune vibe with like what's going on around you, instead of feeling like that you're rushing through things and that, you're really all in that space.
Yeah. Although I think that if you're like, if the content, if the words on the page of your life, so to speak, is enjoyable, then you probably would want to shrink the margin some, right? Like if you have a career and you really like what you do, it's really fascinating, you want to look into it more, you want to like build yourself up in that regard. Like wouldn't you want to shrink your margins, or like in your downtime, don't you find it refreshing to continue to exert yourself in that direction?
I mean, I think you're missing the point of it, is that you have to have and I'm not going to say a sense of balance, because we all know balance is kind of BS. Like not everything is always going to be in balance, and it's not going to be equal. But do you have times where, like, yeah, maybe you are really interested in your career, but is it because you show up to work from 9 to 5 every day and you're always there? Or do you find refreshing going to a conference where you spend 2 days talking to other people, like, in your arena about like something new and something that you want to get into? So I think there are different ways to build margin and still like achieve. But if it's, always just kind of like that rote, like this is what we always do, this is how we always do it at this fast pace, like are we taking enough time to just have some fresh air?
So do you have any examples of how you would define margin?
I think it's probably different for everybody, because what everybody needs is different. But the whole point of the definition is that there's some unscheduled time that you can use in whatever way you want, and that helps like kind of breathe some new life into you. So even this past weekend, we had nothing going on. What night was that? Friday night? Saturday night? Whatever it was. We didn't have to go anywhere. We didn't have to be anywhere. The kids didn't have to be anywhere. We just kind of had some space and time. And you're like, you know what? Let's make the kids an easy dinner. Let's put them downstairs on our patio furniture in front of the TV. They can watch a movie, have dinner. Let's order sushi, and like, let's just spend time together. And we spent like, over 2 hours just at the table. We had the sushi on our china. We had a drink. Like we were just kind of like relaxing and being together. And that has been kind of few and far between lately, really for the last couple of months. Just time with each other has just not been as consistent or as, I don't know what the word is, romantic or anything like that. And so it just felt good. And after that, like I felt better. Like I felt very like loved. I felt very cared for. I felt like recharged. And then it just makes me like feel better in terms of like even just working yesterday. I worked for like a few hours. Like I felt refreshed, and I felt like I could go back to my narrative, to my story, to the pages in my book, and like move forward because I felt like I was just like filled up.
Yeah. So that makes me think of, from time to time, I'll like come home and I'll say like, what's on the schedule for tonight? And every once in a while, the answer is nothing. And I think that was the joke going into like COVID quarantine, when all of a sudden there was a whole lot of nothing, and it was like, all right, like this is great. We have nowhere that we need to be, nobody who needs us right now. But now that normal life and some of the hecticness of the routine has picked up again, that is definitely something that I look forward to, is like being able to say like, all right, what's on the agenda? It's like, oh, actually we have a blank slate for the evening or for the next few hours. Although, like in your example, it's a good example because it's exactly like the way it panned out. But I think of what ends up kind of filling a lot of our time as well. And I know you and I are refreshed when we're able to spend time together. But often it's together, but also like with all four kids and their various needs or arguments, and the dog and her needs as well. So do you feel that even in those unscheduled like family times, do you feel that refreshes you in the same way that time alone or time with me does?
I think it just kind of depends on what's going on. I feel like obviously right now, life looks different for us than it did maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, when I like really wasn't working at all and I was, like at home. And that was like one person's comment was like that they always felt like I had like so much time to give to others because like I didn't like overschedule. I didn't have a ton going on. And so like, like just your kind of MO shifts. Like people could just like stop by if they needed me, and I could like spend some time with them. And so like I'm trying to like think about that, and while at the time I was like bored because there wasn't enough going on.
A little too much margin.
Correct. And, now I'm just trying to think about like when I schedule my days or like what my weeks look like, or even like at the end of the year when we kind of like look at, what's ahead for the next year, like what do we want it to look like? And there, there's a few different approaches for like setting your margins to be who you want to be, to, like schedule what you want to schedule, but to also feel like that you're not always depleted by what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Because I think about some of the just the idea of something being or time being unscheduled seems strange, but at the same time it's pretty common. Like if you look at like a typical weekend, like there's normally things that we bounce around between, but there's also like space between those activities as well. But I also feel like there's always like this looming list of things that even if you don't get to them, they're still there. Like there's always something that around the house like needs fixing or needs some attention, or always something for work that I could get ahead on. There's always something, and if you don't do it now, then it's just going to bite you a little bit later on.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all feel like that to some extent, but we also need that time to like be refreshed and to not be working or to not be on or to not like really be fully engaged in something. Like there is benefit to having that time and space. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it like to even just reflect on like the week ahead and what's going to happen and setting yourself up for success. Like there's plenty of people who take Sunday to like, right, they like do their meal prep for the week and they look and plan out like their family calendar for the week so that it's, like an easy transition back into the week so that there is more time, more space, so that you're not always running from thing to thing if you've got meals prepped in the fridge and who's got to be dropped off when, and there's like a plan in place. And so, having time to not only just like rest or to fill it with things that fill you up, but also having time to, like reflect and like plan is important. So you need some of that space around what you're doing to do it well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like one of the gifts that I give myself is some of that preparation, so that when it is time to produce or to execute to some degree, then some of the foundation's already there. I don't have to start from square one with every single thing. But I've done some of whether the prep work or the thought work or whatever kind of precedes it. So you have momentum going into the week or to the actual task.
Well, and I like that, like the prep work or the thought work, like even just having like a tending list of like the stuff I got to get done this week, or like by day, or for you, maybe it's by like class for like what you're prepping for. For me, it's like kind of like my to-do list for business, like the stuff I'm working on, the stuff I need to take care of, that it's there. And so that when you go to it, it's more efficient and it doesn't drain as much time, but you've had some time and space to reflect on it. Mm-hmm. So there's two approaches you could take with setting or resetting or adjusting your margins. And the first is kind of like when you go to write a paper, you set your margins first, right? So like you open your doc, your
Unless
Google Doc.
They're you and you write and then you set them last.
Then you keep adjusting them to fill it, right? But you set your margins and then you fit the rest of your life inside of them. So it's like, I've got this many days, this many hours, here's the space I have, and filling it appropriately. And then you use those margins to like keep you in check so that you kind of have it all around. So you could, looking at what gives you margin, like what gives you room to breathe so that the rest of your life doesn't feel so frazzled. So like considering your margins could go something like this. I want margin in my mornings so I can work out, or enjoy my coffee, or fill out my gratitude journal, or get to work on time. So it's like, okay, I need a little bit more time and space in my mornings. So if I want to do that, right? If I want some time in my mornings to work out, or right, what do I need to do in order to make that happen? Probably going to have to like wake up earlier. So like there's some different things that you have to put in place to get what you want out of it.
Yeah. But already and I think this is where everyone's different preferences come in, because that seems, they can seem very busy as well, like a very busy morning in a sense, where the margin for someone else might be to stay in bed for as long as possible.
Right. But if you do have a busy schedule, and if an hour to work out to be healthy and to like have space alone is to wake up an hour earlier, then you kind of set your plan to include that, right? Like for years, mine would have been to like not set an alarm and to sleep in as long as I can. But for me, then I'm playing catch up. So for me, the margin is an extra bit of time and space in the morning so that I can get my workout in. I can put myself first. I can have a cup of coffee before the chaos of the day. Other people might say like, I want margin on the weekends so I can like be spontaneous and go have fun with my husband. Or so I have time to do some things around the house. And so like, I'm going to like, I don't want to say restrict, but like, I'm going to work, from 9 to 5 every day. And on these 2 days, I'm going to work later to like, find the time and space for that so that I have free time on the weekends to be with my family or to work on a project or to take on a hobby. And so it's more like, these are the parameters and I'm going to fit it into those parameters so that I can do the things on the outskirts that keep me sane, mm-hmm. or that fill me up. The same thing could be true. I want margin over the holidays so I can finish Christmas shopping without feeling stressed. So I can host a holiday, right? Like doing some food prep beforehand so I can sit with my guests and enjoy their time. And so in order to get those results, you have to figure out what you're going to do right in the confines of those margins to make sure that you get those accurately.
So it seems like a lot of what you're saying is like the prep work, like knowing like how do I want to enjoy or experience a given set of time, like a holiday or a weekend. But if I'm hearing you right, like that requires like preparation beforehand or extra work beforehand to be able to provide that time for yourself when you want it.
Yeah. So it's really deciding what's important first and then making your schedule kind of reflect those priorities, those values that we talk about week after week. And then there's a second approach, which is just creating a simpler schedule. So you set your schedule and you do it thoughtfully with precision so that the text that your story, your schedule is meaningful and the margins grow naturally around it.
I laughed a little because I'm like, that's easier said than done, especially when you kind of have this competing value of wanting your kids to be involved and invested in, right? And that very easily it takes away the margin, especially like during the week when they're hustling between activities.
Well, right. And so this other approach is you create a simpler schedule. And for some family, it's that child A gets a fall sport, child B gets a winter sport, and child C gets a spring sport. And when they're easy, that's easy. Or when they're little, that's easy because, right, like, all right, you do something now, you'll do something next, and it's just one sport that you're.
Well, it means like telling your kids no, in a sense, or setting limits on what they're invested in.
Correct. And then, like, the same thing for parents. Like, yeah, you can have a career and you can have this one hobby, but then you can't be out, these nights of like, so it's really a trial and error thing. Like, what's going to work for you? What's going to work for your family in terms of like what you value, what you, say is important to you. And also like even your goals and what you want to achieve. So yeah, you can create a simpler schedule, but like maybe that's not for you. And that is for some people. The simpler, the better. We just weed out like the excess, and we focus on these one or two things, and then that's it. And then you kind of set the parameters around that, or you have to like really intentionally build it into what you're doing.
Yeah. So you have to. It seems like when you're married, like you have to communicate like what those parameters are to your spouse too, because like we've talked about too, like the kids need care. There's a certain set of responsibilities, just need attention. And so if you need a break or downtime or margin or however you want to use it, that has to be facilitated or understood by the other person.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we've been working kind of to fit in as well this fall. Maybe it just seems more hectic because it was so quiet for a while with COVID. Mm-hmm. But we're like trying to figure out what that routine looks like.
That's how a lot of people feel right now. I mean, you look at like across industries and you see so many professionals saying that they feel very burnt out, like coming off summer and then just churning through September and through October. And so I think that this is I haven't seen it referred to like this anywhere else, but like a post-COVID trauma in a sense, where it's like, man, like we are tired as a people. And we can't necessarily explain why or put our finger on it, but like the things going on in our lives now have created like this increased stress, and we just need a break. When I was in undergrad, we had one professor, we'd have like 3 or 4 hour long classes. And so the professor would just teach the whole time. And then she'd say like, if you need a comfort break, then you can just, that's what she would call it. You can just stand up and excuse yourself take a 5-minute comfort break, then come back. And so then as April Fool's joke, one student in collaboration with the professor started yelling at the professor and then stormed off saying, "I'm taking my comfort break." And, so we were all kind of played at that moment until he came back and laughed. But I think of that from time to time now when we're having like a stressful moment and we just need to tell each other or tell the world, as we storm off to our room, like, "I'm taking my comfort break. I'm taking my margin."
Taking my margin. Yeah. Well, but I think that's, for me, like I don't really set a lot of margin. There's, a couple times. So Roman is only in preschool 2 days a week, and it's just for 2.5 hours. And once, like 2 weeks ago, I signed him up for like a preschool adventures, means he can stay until 3:00. Like He has lunch there. He gets to play with the other kids.
The aftercare.
Because I needed some more time and space just to like get some things done. And, you had even been encouraging me, like, you could sign him up for that. Like he could go, he doesn't have to go all the time, but if you need some more time, and I felt bad, like taking that time. It didn't matter that he's home, 3 days a week, really 5 days a week.
Right.
But like
it feels
like,
a little selfish. You feel like
feels
a bad
little
parent.
Selfish, but just to even get caught up on work. So then I'm sitting there working for the extra like 4 hours that he's gone. And I'm thinking there was no one home all day, right? Like we're talking like 6 hours. Is there a reason like I didn't take an hour to read or to like, do something that was like literally just for me? Which, sometimes helps you be more productive when you just have a break from like the work or the responsibilities or the task list. This Tuesday, I'm going to have some more time too. And I was laughing because I told you, I'm like, what if when everyone's gone, I plug in all of the Christmas lights and everything like that. I light the fire, I sit with a cup of coffee and I
Christmas
read.
Lights.
And you're like, yeah, why don't you do that? And I'm thinking, because I got a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah. Well, but let me ask you, so you had like a 6 straight hours of work while Roman was out that day. Like, did you enjoy that, or were you working because like you felt like you had to? Because I think that's one of the differences that you're trying to distinguish. And I think for you it's a little bit of both. Like, you enjoy what you do, but you also feel like, especially when you have an event coming up or you have a meeting, right? Then there's some like time sensitive prep that's going on. So is that, I don't know, like you could take an hour or 20 minutes even to do a different activity, but if you're enjoying it as much as the primary activity, then wouldn't you say that there's, maybe it's a blurring of like your margin and your work productive life, but in a happy sense?
Well, and I'm not saying that you can't enjoy your work or you can't enjoy what you do or you can't like enjoy the fact that, this kid plays basketball and this one's in ice skating and that one is in basket weaving, and like that's all fun and it's all good. But sometimes it's nice to not have to be anywhere. Sometimes it's nice to not have to like accomplish something, that there's a time and a place to like have some space to think about things that you need to think about, to like plan for things, to consider things, to, ask yourself the hard questions, ask yourself what's next, like to kind of dream and to, just think through things.
Yeah.
And we don't give ourselves that time.
Well, there's a lot of noise in our lives too. I might have mentioned this too, I don't know, but I've taken a pretty consistent lunch break for the past year, which is unique for me because
Mind-boggling.
Yeah. Most of my career, I would not take any lunch break. I'd be one of those people like eating their food over their work or over the keyboard. But for the past year I have, and it's been I would say about 15 or 20 minutes. That's about all I can handle of sitting still. But I'll eat my lunch and I'll read the news on my phone. It's become my routine.
Wow, you use a device to read. I'm shocked.
Yeah. Well, I have a little like news app and everything.
There you
go. But I feel good with it. I just tune everything else out, everybody else out, and like just take those few minutes. And I have to, like, afterwards, I feel pretty good. It's not like this overabundance of break time, but I'll do just enough so that I feel like, okay, now I've not thought about the kind of work that I'm doing for the other 8 or 9 hours that I'm here. So I'm ready to do, it's like halftime for me. I'm ready to do the second half.
Well, and I think that's the whole point of like the margin in the breathing room. Like it can really be anything. And so, yeah, maybe it's as simple as like, how many of us just like eat very quickly? I have to eat standing up. So it's like, can you just take a break, like nourish yourself with something good, right? Turn on some music, like just a break from the norm, just to like relax and let go. It really could be anything, right? Like sometimes I'll walk the dog. Like when Roman's at school for an hour, she gets like a 70-minute walk, and it's like she gets a good walk and we're through the forest preserve. And that like fills me up. Like going on like a 2 to 3 mile walk, just like seeing the colors and the leaves and just being outside, getting some fresh air. But like maybe it's like calling your aunt, or it's calling a friend that like, you always see each other at like drop off and pick up at school, but you don't just have time to like just 20 minutes, right? Like to feel connected to someone else, to like check in with someone, and maybe it looks more like a hobby, like, right, that you have enough margin in your life to do something that you enjoy or another interest. I know sometimes for you, things that you want to do, other like goals and interests, might look like work to other people, but you really enjoy them.
Yeah, if I'm like reading or learning about something new, then yeah, absolutely, I get excited.
Well, yeah, but I'm even talking about, like closing on a property and spending some time at the property, like prepping it to like get new renters in. Like I've never really seen you get so excited about,
handyman.
Yeah, handyman work. Things around our house, but like you'll go spend a few hours and like it's a break for you. It's out of the norm, but you feel like you're accomplishing something, but it's not in your career. It's something completely unrelated. It's something that like scratches an itch for you. It's something that like brings you joy. And while it is like technically work, right? Like anything that,
well, you're working with your hands,
right? But some people might be like, that's not what I would do with my spare time, but that brings you some joy. It gives you just a new set of eyes looking at something different. Mm-hmm. So I do have like 7 simple ways to create more margin. If you're looking for suggestions on like, well, how do I create this space? Or like, how can I do what I want to do and still feel the freedom to maybe do what I enjoy? So
7 ways, fire away.
All right. First one is to wake up earlier. So,
you start Now, I say OG. I like waking up early. I was up at like 5:15 today.
Yes, you are an early riser.
But I say OG for, many people, that can be a big hurdle as well.
But that was a big hurdle for me for years, and it's now not. I also find when I wake up earlier, you probably find this, you go to bed earlier. So you're really not expanding your margins further where it's like you're up for more hours during the day. It's just you're shifting your time. So if it's that you need time and space in the morning before people are up to have some time to yourself, then that means you go to bed earlier so that you still get your, 7 to 8 hours of sleep and you're refreshed and your body is recovering and you're getting what you need. But try waking up earlier.
Right, so the downside to that then too, which I've experienced, is like you and I like to spend time together, except there's no way you and I are going to have quality time between like 5 and 7 a.m.
No,
right?
We're not.
Really, like for us, like that quality time is probably going to come like later in the evening, once the evening is quiet, the kids are either settled or in bed, right? But at that point, we're also tired enough from having woken up early and done whatever
Killed
we've
the
done
day,
all day.
yeah.
Right. So, I think that becomes a challenging counterpoint as well. There's so many rich things that we want to do for ourselves and for the people in our lives that you have to be really strategic with when and how and where you are fitting those elements in.
So, and that's kind of part of this conversation is like, okay, if all of these things are important, how do they fit? Where do they fit? How do we get them to fit in? If early mornings are a great time for us to individually, hit the go button and get what we need, then where do we make adjustments in our schedule to make sure that we're connecting at night, right? Does that mean that the next morning after we hang out, like is not up at 5 to go to the gym morning,
yeah.
right? So
we could try it too. We could move like our Monday evening time to a Monday morning time, like 6 to 7 a.m.
There you go. The best we have to offer at 5:30 a.m.
All right. We'll let you know, people, if we move forward with that.
All right. So 1, wake up earlier. 2, leave plenty of space between activities. So this would probably be the most challenging for me, is to like not have it be like go, 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 that things are stacked on top of each other. The planner that I've used, I've talked about it before, like is broken down into like hourly increments. And so when I'm like planning my schedule and I fill it in, like I try and not have things stacked like one on top of the other, where there's like a little bit of room so that I have time to like kind of like process or prep for like what's coming next. And so whether that's like work related or, family oriented or whatever, like I'm trying to leave some space in between so that I can last minute run and grab something if needed, or pick up someone or help somebody else out. I try and leave some of that space. Mm-hmm. Number 3 is don't overbook yourself, which has to do with like leave plenty of space between your activities, right? Like I always want to fill my time. I'm going to pack it in. Like I won't take 4 trips up the stairs. I will grab every single bag and go in one trip. Like it's okay. Like you can't always do it all, right? So leave some for the next day or for the next trip. The other thing I've learned to do, which has been great, is say no to things you don't want to do.
All right. So what number is this?
4.
That's number 4. All right. So number 3, don't overbook yourself. Number 4, say no to things you don't want to do.
How do you feel like you are with that?
I don't know. I don't find myself doing things I don't want to do very often. I mean, I just want to do a lot. So I tend to say yes to the opportunities. Typically, I'll make more work for myself. And then if there's things that I really don't want to do, then I'll say, yeah. And I put it at the bottom of my list of things to get around to.
Oh, I really haven't noticed.
Right.
Number 5, set yourself up for success.
Wait, that was it? You just asked that question? Is there something more you want to say about it?
No, I think a lot of people just say yes. And there are a lot of times that there are things now that I feel like I want to say yes to, but I don't have the time. And so I don't say no because I don't want to. I say no because I think I'm better at knowing my limits now.
Yeah.
I really would like to do that, but I can't.
Yeah.
And I don't like to use like work or kids as an excuse, but like, when the park district asked me like, hey, do you think you could coach your son's 4th grade basketball team? Mm-hmm. No, I cannot.
You both don't have the time or the skill.
Hey, it has nothing to do with the skill. I'm not awful, but like I also don't have someone that's going to like watch the other kids while I do it. So like I just have to be okay saying no.
I mean, but I think there's some easy no's as well, where Same thing, like just going with the coaching example, right? Sometimes I will coach one of our kids' soccer teams, and some seasons I won't. But I don't know. It's not hard because I just look at our schedule and say, okay, it makes sense here, but it actually doesn't make sense here because we have all these other commitments going on.
Well, and I think that's part of it. So if you're listening and you're not the kind of person who's like, well, let me think about this in context. Like some people will just always say yes. But if it's not working for your family or for like what's happening at the moment, like you can't say yes because then you're really just setting yourself up for failure because it's not going to be smooth. So it's, you have to choose your yeses and nos and you have to plan accordingly. Which goes into number 5, which is set yourself up for success. Being organized, being ready, being proactive instead of being reactive to things.
Yeah, that's my biggest takeaway is just like managing your time now so that your time later is managed.
Okay. Number 6, avoid duplicates in your schedule. And so, if something is very important to you, that's great, but sometimes you can't do that thing 2 or 3 nights a week. Right? Like, so making...
Talking about anything in particular?
We are not talking about anything in particular. But, it's just like, do we have to do this? Obviously, some things are a 2-night-a-week commitment. But if there is a chance where it doesn't have to be 2 nights a week or it's 1 night during the week and 1 on the weekends, it's really just making sure that you're not spending too much time in something that doesn't fit.
Well, if it doesn't fit... I don't know, like with this one, it's interesting because if it doesn't fit, then it shouldn't be in your schedule at all, right? But if it does, then it should, like having it multiple times a week or like whatever you're thinking of, like I feel like then you commit to, you double down on it. Like what's a duplicate in a schedule that someone could avoid?
Okay, so let's think about the gym. Like I'll hit the gym in the morning and it's early and it doesn't interfere with anyone's schedule or you getting to work, or if you do have to go to work earlier for a meeting, like I cut out early so that like it's fitting. But then I don't go back to the gym, at 4:30 in the afternoon for like another session. You know what I mean? Where it's just like you find a time that works and you do it so that it doesn't interfere or compete, so that you get what you want, but you're also like maintaining your obligations to everyone else. Oh, you're thinking about jujitsu, aren't you?
Well, that's typically like 2 times a week. So,
but I'm not thinking about it for you. I'm thinking about it for Juliet, who has now shown this very great interest in jujitsu.
Right.
But she's at gymnastics on Mondays and she's at dance on Tuesdays, and then she goes to jujitsu on Wednesday, and then she really wants to go again on Thursdays.
She's dying to go.
And so when it works for the family, I think that's fine. Like, do we have something going on? No, right? Is it going to interfere with family dinner? But now we're seeing that like the increased level of number of nights of week at jujitsu then changes the family dinner routine.
It does.
And so then
it shifts everything. Like it's not just that, but
correct. So what are we willing to shift?
Activities. Yeah.
And right now that basketball will be starting with the boys, like it's not going to work on Thursdays. And so it's knowing that and then adjusting so that the priorities that are in front of you fit within the margins.
Yeah. I'm thinking of other activities that are fun to do 3 or 4 or more times a week as well.
Number 7.
Okay.
Batch and bulk. When you batch and bulk, whether it's activities or whether it's anything in your schedule, it allows you to be more efficient. And I remember my mom telling me this years ago, where it's like, if you're doing something like you're making cookies, you roll all the dough first and then you cut it, and then you don't like roll this little bit and then cut it, and you go back, you bulk and you batch. You do the same thing over and over because you can do that faster than like doing a little bit at a time, where it's like, like Monday is this day and Tuesday is that day. So you get it all done.
Time management 101 in a sense, where if you have a given task to do, you do it all at once.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so that helps you have time and space, where it's, if you're always right, if you go to the grocery store 5 days a week to cook dinner 5 nights a week, like, right, you're wasting time going back. So like you prep, your grocery list for the week, you get it all ready, you get it all organized so that it's just a very streamlined process. Mm-hmm. Same thing with laundry or chores or like whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. So those are ways to like add more space to your margin so that you can do what you want, so that you can have some downtime, so that you have some breathing room to kind of process, assess, and do the things that help fill you up, and not just the things that get you from day to day.
Help fill you up instead of weigh you down.
There you go.
Fill you up, never gonna weigh you down.
Oh, okay. I don't.
Right, you can make a whole little jingle.
I don't think that that's how the song goes. Just so you know, though.
It's not. But
Okay.
Yeah, that's our own little parody, Relentless Pursuit parody of it.
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, as always, we appreciate hearing your comments and your feedback and the ways that you build margin into your life. So if you enjoyed this conversation and you feel like there's someone else out there who might benefit from hearing us talk over margin in our life, then please feel free to share this conversation with them. And as always, our humble request that you visit iTunes, leave a 5-star rating and a wonderful review for us. We always appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a good week, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to today's show. We hope you will use this conversation as a starting point for your own. We hope you're encouraged to think and act more intentionally.
If you want to learn more, you can visit our website, therelentlesspursuitpodcast.com, where you can find notes on today's show, plus additional blog posts, and you can subscribe to our free members list.
Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends.
Facebook and Instagram are 2 great places to connect with us for daily doses of our quotable quotes, behind the scenes, and real-time photos, videos, and challenges.
Until next time, let us know how you are taking life off autopilot
And relentlessly pursuing what matters.